Oh, Bill, what the fuck is this? What are you doing to me?
I figured I had to start the show off with a fuck-uppery because we made the biggest fuck-uppery. We caused a lot of harm this last couple days.
How?
We said it will not snow. We will not be seeing snow. And the next damn day, it snowed all through Pennsylvania and everybody's losing their damn minds.
Didn't we say fucking R.I.P. Snow is the title for the last episode?
Yeah.
Well, we're not fucking weather forecasters.
Can't sound like a know-it-all if you get things wrong. I want to be a know-it-all, and I was sure we wouldn't get any more snow.
Well, you did claim to be a soothsayer as well in a previous episode. Maybe last week, maybe the week prior, I don't know. But your soothsaying abilities do not apply to meteorological events.
No, you're right.
Well...
And we're supposed to get more snow tomorrow.
I was just going to say, the forecast is calling for more snow overnight, so we're really bad at this. However, I do have a correction. And an update, not a correction, more of an update. My kids finally went sledding.
Yes, good. I was going to ask you.
Yeah, my wife Jenna bought them sleds on Amazon. They got delivered on Monday. Snow came on Tuesday. They had schools around here closed. You know, kids don't have school days or snow days anymore from school. It's just a flexible instruction day.
The hell is that?
It's a result of COVID pandemic. So I guess because all kids do everything on iPads, if they think it's going to snow the next day, they just send them home with iPads. And now they'll have school assignments posted at 8:30 tomorrow that they'll have to do on their own time. But they still have to do schoolwork even though they're on a snow day.
Oh, it's like their version of work from home.
Exactly. Well, they went sledding over at the high school here. They were having a hell of a good time. I had to go to work, but they had a hell of a good time sledding down the hill. They weren't building ramps or doing anything destructive like us 80s kids did, but still were having a hell of a good time.
We record this on Tuesday nights, and you're like, Bill, I can't record Tuesday night. And I said to Amy, I said, tell me he had the shovel, but I know he's out sledding with the kids. And in fact, I hope he's out sledding with the kids.
And actually, Jenna did some shoveling for me during the day. I had to go home and fight with like the salt spreader. So I was like spreading salt, and I was like, I'm not doing that and then doing a fucking podcast. I'll be in the most miserable mood of all time.
I did that maneuver where I looked out from a window and I said, doesn't look like snow blower snow. I didn't go down and look at it like, up close. I was like, meh. I was in the mood not to pull out the snow blower. So I looked at it and I said, it's not enough. Not enough. Yeah, it was enough. It was enough for a snowball. So now my entire driveway is just a sheet of ice. But that's okay. I like to challenge Amy because Amy bought one of them Subaru Foresters and she insists it's an SUV and I insist it's a station wagon. So I'm like, that's okay. You got an SUV. You can make it up the driveway. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And the roads are still choppy as all hell. I mean, this wasn't a bad snow, but was Pennsylvania not expecting this?
I don't know. You probably got a good 3 inches.
Welcome to Too Much CGI, the show where we talk about all kinds of pop culture geekery, both retro and today. If you were a kid in the 80s or 90s, you're in our club. I'm Bill. This is Scott. And you're you. How you doing, Scott?
Dude, I'm a little fucking nutty. You're talking to a guy that's been staring at spreadsheets for the past 8.5 hours. So I'm a little, you're gonna have to pull me through this show, I think. Like I'm seeing fucking cells and grids and rows and columns and numbers and calculations, and I'm a little bit on the edge.
What are you doing at work?
I do the reports that make sure other reports are correct. I said it on the other show. You said I'm a big numbers guy, and I am a big numbers guy, but if the raw data is not accurate, the numbers and the reports that you're showing me don't mean shit to me. So I draw my own raw data and I cross-reference it against the reports that they present. If it doesn't make sense, I ask questions.
You're one of those rare people that are both left-brained and right-brained. Like you're good at math and analytics, but you're also creative.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you're editing half the show. The way that we do these edits, you do the first pass and you really put together and organize and chop out a lot of shit. And then I do like a polishing pass and add a couple extra things and a couple spacing, edits and things like that. And that's not easy. And you do a great job. And I even fucked up. Here's another fuck-uppery. How about that giant? So when I export the show, I'm the one who exports the final show out of the tool that we use. Every once in a while, it just farts. It just absolutely farts. And it's like, I would have to listen to the whole show before we launch it. And I just don't have time because we edit it. I edit my part on Sunday. So I just kind of wing it. I give it like a quick look, the wave files, and I go, okay, it looks good. I don't know how I missed a giant gap because it was probably like 10 minutes. I don't know how much was out of the recording until I caught it and fixed it. But I fixed it at about 9 a.m. So Amy comes home and she goes, oh my God, I was listening to the show and all of a sudden the sound went off like I was taking a call. And I started going, hello? Did somebody just call me? Hello? So I was thinking like, oh, that's funny that happened to you and you thought it was a call. How many other people were listening to our show in their car and did the same thing?
So I do listen in my car on the way to work, but I didn't listen to the show, I don't think, until Tuesday. And you must have fixed it and re-uploaded the fix by then because I didn't even know there was an error till you told me about it.
I found the error doing the video, which I always do the next day. Nothing's ever easy.
I don't think that's a fuck-uppery either. I mean, not catching it's maybe a fuck-uppery, but these recording softwares and editing software and publishing software, it's also goddamn finicky. You never know what it's going to do. And, you know, a problem that's fixed this week might be a problem again 2 weeks from now, and there's just no fucking rhyme or reason for any of it.
It's getting goddamn ridiculous.
It's getting goddamn ridiculous.
All this new technology, you're talking about all this new technology. Did you hear, speaking of new technology, the thing that is out there now, the George Carlin From the Grave comedy set?
No.
All right. So here's what's happened. We're at this point now. Somebody has gone online, has done an impression of George Carlin, recorded that impression with some software that's out there. It's there's one called like 11 Labs you can go to if you want to do this yourself. And then he let AI make a stand-up routine. First, he took George Carlin's corpus of material, uploaded that so it could learn George's style and what George thought was funny. The damn show that you can go listen to on YouTube right now isn't terrible.
This is called From the Grave.
No, it's not. I forgot the name of it. But would you like to hear some of it?
I would love to.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to start off with a heartfelt apology. I'm sorry it took me so long to come out with new material, but I do have a pretty good excuse. I was dead. So technically, it wasn't my fault. If you want to blame somebody, you're going to have to blame God. Which we all know is not going to happen. People are always thanking God for the good stuff in their lives, but somehow they conveniently forget that it's the same God who does all the bad shit too. And he does a lot of bad shit. You get a promotion, praise Jesus. You get fired, God is testing me. You meet your soulmate, God brought us together. Your soulmate dumps you, God is bringing me someone else. You survive a tornado, I'm so blessed. 20 other people do not, God wanted them in heaven. It's all bullshit.
All right, well, you get it. I mean, it seems like it's George Carlin from like his last HBO special, but he was really, anti-religion, stupidity. But what did you think? Was it funny?
I'll say this. I mean, it sounded like George Carlin, and I feel like I already heard those jokes before, so I don't know how much it was recycled, but the phrasing is definitely there. The inflection in his voice is definitely there. The voice may not be spot on, but the delivery and the timing and everything else that George Carlin had is certainly being mimicked here, for sure.
Yeah. So you think those jokes were used before? I didn't think they were great jokes, but I was impressed that they weren't awful jokes.
I just remember the religion thing where it was like, it's all bullshit and they're all going to keep feeding it to you. And it just felt like a continuing riff on that.
Yeah. And that's like AI to say, I read that once and that's what's going to make it into this export of this comedian doing jokes on stage.
So again, not creating, but maybe reorganizing and maybe rephrasing.
Yeah, because that's what this AI is. It's all probability. It's like a bazillion triple, quadruple, 7-sided die, whatever those fucking big old chunks of marble were that we used to roll doing Dungeons and Dragons. Think about a bazillion of them being rolled at once, and each one rolls up a word and a letter or a sound or a pixel that it knows to roll based on something it saw before.
Yeah.
So there's so much probability because the dice are always rolling. So if somebody said it out there, yeah, they're going to eventually mix it into some version that comes out. And sometimes it's going to come out more like the original that it copied. And sometimes it's going to be just pieces of many things that it copied. So it's crazy. That's why everybody's trying to sue AI, ChatGPT. And they're like, look, you're making all this stuff on our work. And they're losing because the judges are like, well, isn't every piece of art built on somebody else's work? You can't say that they're not allowed to build something. But I don't know. Yeah, Sarah Silverman was trying to sue. She was the last case that I read about. And she went in and she said, if this thing trained itself on my stuff, I don't want somebody just going to ChatGPT and saying, tell me the Sarah Silverman jokes from the book ABC or whatever book she put out. It's not exactly what AI will do, but it can.
Sure.
Right now, I don't think it has the ability to be that specific and search something and, explore it. That's more what Google's working on.
Yeah, it couldn't really identify a joke out of a book. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to pull just jokes. It can't identify what a joke is in a book, I don't think. It's just words.
Well, it does this thing called, there's vectors. And basically, if enough vectors point to a certain area, it says that's probably humor. If it points to another area, so intent or, emotion is kind of guessed by this system.
Okay.
And the more that it learns what's good and what's bad, it's just like when you watch Johnny Five, he's reading those books really fast. He's watching TV. Like, that's what this is. This is Johnny Five.
Input, more input.
Learning the entire world, but not having enough he came to life like Pinocchio. But if he didn't, he is AI.
Number 5 is alive.
I mean, my main takeaway from this is that it felt like a watered down George Carlin. You know what I mean? This wasn't true. It wasn't original George Carlin. And it wasn't, obviously, but it wasn't a good enough copy to make me even believe that it would have been.
But if they got the real George Carlin and, his estate says, yeah, let's make an AI and now we can have a machine tell his jokes forever,
Yeah.
Maybe that's something they could make in the future.
Yeah, if you had just played this, not told me what it was and asked me who it was, I would have said it's George Carlin, without a doubt.
Really? I would have known it was an impression. He had a lot of the inflections right.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm dead.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But
Right.
there was a lot where I was like, yeah, that sounds more like an impression. I'm a big George Carlin fan, so I know his voice inside and out. So maybe that's why.
If you asked me what comedian this is, and not knowing I had an option of saying oh, it's some knockoff computer, I would have guessed George Carlin. It's close enough to get that,
I would have probably guessed Emo Phillips.
Is that Bobcat Goldthwait?
All right, looking at the agenda here, trying to move us along. I got, my friend Joe said we forgot. This is the mailbag section of the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Mail, motherfucker!
We forgot a TV show that got turned into a movie.
Okay.
A very big one. And when he told me, I went, holy shit, we did forget that. And then I thought, I'm going to bring it up because it was a very good show.
Okay.
And a very good movie.
When I was listening to this playback, first of all, I'm disappointed I only got 3, but I did think of others that we didn't mention as I was driving my car to work. I can't think of them now, but what did Joe come up with?
I'll give you a clue.
Dragnet.
Yeah, how do we forget that
I
one?
don't know.
Remember that? Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks?
That's right.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
People must have forgotten about it. Nobody talks about Dragnet. All the stuff from the 80s, that one never gets mentioned. Was that a bomb? I remember thinking it was a hit.
I guess it must have been.
I remember it being on TV. I remember the Dragnet, reruns showing up on regular TV. It had a moment. Dragnet.
Speaking of bombs, Bewitched. They came out with a Bewitched with Nicole Kidman and Will Ferrell.
Did we say Land of the Lost? Speaking of Will Ferrell.
No.
Damn.
Didn't talk about that either.
We're having an impromptu sequel to that last episode.
Yeah, but there were a couple things I thought of, and I was just but these movies, and this goes back to a question I think you had. Yeah, you and Steve were going back and forth talking about buying up TV rights before somebody else buys them up and turns them into movies, and then we were talking about how many of those movies actually became successful. I think we're proving not many.
Well, what is success? I mean, Brother Steve may have a point if success is just making money at the time. Is success being remembered?
Yeah.
And it's Really kind of weird, too, to go on YouTube sometimes and look up these old 80s movies, and they're just there, streaming for free, because nobody's even bothering to pull them down anymore because nobody's making any money on them.
This is why we have Tubi.
You don't need Tubi. Half this shit's on YouTube.
I know. It really is.
Want to move into what are you watching?
Yeah. I'm not watching much. What are you up to?
I'm watching that new Echo.
Oh, yeah, you asked if I was going to watch that. I think I will, but I haven't started.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. They did a 5-episode drop. Everything came at once, which I don't know who's doing that anymore, but that was cool. So I was able to kind of watch everything in 2 days. And it's good. It's surprisingly good.
I have a question about this. Is this being shown on Disney Plus or on Hulu or on both?
I don't know. I think now that you say Hulu, I think I remember hearing that it's on both.
I think I remember seeing it on my Hulu, but I thought it would have been under the Marvel thing in Disney Plus, so it really threw me off.
Well, it's definitely in there.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I found it.
I thought maybe they were saying the stage for when this whole thing becomes one in March, like we talked about. So we're not too far away from that. So maybe they're just going to start posting the new shows in both places. I don't know, but it caught me off guard when I saw it on my Hulu feed.
I wasn't looking forward to it at all. Saw the trailer. I was like, all right, it's the violent Netflix type show now in the MCU. And when you know how they always have a banner, an MCU banner, and if it's not, yeah, like remember the Werewolf by Night had a different banner?
Yeah.
Well, now this is like a third banner, and I'm blanking. I think it's like Marvel Spotlight or something, and it's supposed to represent this new darker side of Marvel, where they're basically looking at what they did on Netflix and bringing that back.
Okay.
So this is just my speculation on how all this went down, but they're like, all right, this is back when they're greenlighting everything. They're like, let's greenlight Echo. Well, why? I have no idea, right? Because she was just this bit character in the Hawkeye spinoff show.
Yeah.
We talk about woke Hollywood, maybe that's it. She's hearing impaired. She has a fake leg. I don't know if she has a fake leg in the comic, but I think her name is Maya Lopez, but this takes place with the Choctaw tribe.
Okay.
The whole thing's kind of confusing on what is accurate to the comic, because I'm just not that big a fan of the comic.
Sure.
So I have no idea. But what happens, and if you've seen the trailer, Kingpin is in it.
Yeah.
It's, Native American. You see stuff like that. They're in Oklahoma.
I don't know where we are, but it sure as hell is in Oklahoma.
And I don't want to give anything else away, but it's weird seeing Kingpin outside of New York in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Because we don't even get enough Kingpin with we haven't even seen Kingpin with Spider-Man yet.
No.
We haven't seen Kingpin with anybody but Daredevil on the other channel. It's such a weird thing that they're doing with these fucking characters. We want to see Kingpin with Spider-Man. We want to see Kingpin fighting Daredevil. They chose to have Kingpin, have a show with Maya, with Echo. Now, the show turned out to be decent. That's the crazy thing. It's actually a decent show. But it went, like every one of their shows, it decided to get a little bit bigger than I like. That's not a spoiler. All the Marvel stuff gets huge now. But yeah, I got to tell you, I recommend it. I recommend this show. For the first time, I recommend an MCU show.
Well, I'll have to check that out. I always did like Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. I mean, even from the original Netflix Daredevil series, like when he was fighting Daredevil, like his whole origin story on that show was fantastic.
Yeah. They do something cool at the end of this, and it's like, yeah, now I'm excited.
All right.
But it's just more of that thing that we've been talking about every episode. They're making this up as they go along, and it feels it. But I think now they're making better decisions, so the ending got me excited. And evidently, they are bringing back Daredevil again.
Yeah.
So they had Daredevil Reborn, and I guess everybody said, hit the brakes. We're kind of doing a reset here. We're taking some time to rethink what we want to do for the next phase of Marvel. We got this fucking Kang out. Jonathan Majors is out, so we have a little bit of an opportunity here. Maybe they'll go with Kingpin.
That'd be great.
So if that's the case, they really pushed all this together in their hodgepodge way, but somehow I think they might have made it work.
I wouldn't be mad about that.
I just wonder where they go with it. Are they going to pull back all the Netflix characters? Like, will they bring back, is his name Jonathan Bernthal? He plays Punisher.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was the Punisher, and then there was Jessica Jones, and there was Luke Cage.
I never finished that one.
No?
It was towards the end as they were introducing the Defenders. I barely got through Iron Fist.
I was going to ask what that one was. Iron Fist. That's right.
Yeah. By the time Luke Cage came around, I think I gave it 20 minutes and said, not watch it anymore. And then that Defenders where they all got together.
Yeah, I didn't watch that.
I did, because I was like, all right, well, I invested enough time into most of these characters. I might as well go watch it. It was terrible. Just awful.
I mean, the best two of those, though, in my opinion, having not watched all of them, the best two that I watched, Daredevil #1, Luke Cage #2.
Daredevil's incredible.
I mean, that brought in Elektra, and not in a shitty Jennifer Garner way, but a good Elektra. It brought in, like, the Red Hand Ninja Clan. It brought in Styx. I mean, there was some good shit going on in that show. And, of course, the Kingpin, as I mentioned before.
Yeah. So this isn't a spoiler. It's in the trailer. And the rule on the internet is if it's in the trailer, you can talk about it. But Daredevil's in this.
Yes.
I'm not going to tell you how much or how little. And it's just, I got excited. I was like, this is the fucking man. I'm becoming more and more of a Daredevil fan the less they give me. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. They're teasing me, and I'm becoming like the ultimate fan of Daredevil, and I can't wait until he finally comes out. But I wasn't a huge Daredevil fan. But I always liked the Netflix Daredevil.
Yeah.
That's the only one of all those that I liked. So I'm excited for this.
I didn't go back and watch She-Hulk, so I know Matt Murdock was in that as a lawyer, so he was kind of already in the MCU. I never watched She-Hulk, though, or finished She-Hulk, so this will be the first time for me that Daredevil's in the MCU officially.
I like this. They were talking to the one who played She-Hulk. They're like, is there ever, going to be another She-Hulk? Are we going to see you again? She goes, I don't know. They haven't called me. I think we made a show that was too expensive. Each episode was $25 million, I read.
Seriously.
Yeah, like, you better be making the best show in the world. I mean, She-Hulk was your gamble, but it didn't really pay off, did it?
This ain't fucking Game of Thrones.
Yeah. It's a lot of money. Maybe it's not a lot of money anymore. I don't know.
Jesus
to me, that's
Christ.
a lot of money.
That's like HBO money, though. No wonder fucking Disney Plus isn't making any money.
Speaking of spending money, the other thing I'm watching, I finished watching Monarch.
Oh, is it wrapped up?
Yeah, and the ending is like, you guys put some money into this. I mean, they did a lot of location shooting. I've always said this. It makes a massive difference when you're doing location shooting versus sitting at a green screen.
Sure.
And you could see it on the screen. Like, you see it in the scene. You could tell, just somehow you could tell when they're really out there getting fucking cold because they're in Antarctica versus, their hair is like perfect when they're in the studio. And this got me thinking as I was watching this last episode, which I love the whole show. Last episode, shit the bed. It shit the bed for me.
Oh, no.
It was so full of tropes. It was unbelievable. Would you like to go through some of the tropes that I spotted watching the last episode of Monarch? I was so angry, I wrote them down. So, heads up, got some spoilers here. If you don't want to hear spoilers, you got to skip this segment. All right. You're cool with this, right?
I'm not. I don't have Apple Plus, so go right ahead. Or Apple TV, whatever the fuck they call it.
All right. So in the movie series, they sort of explain that the Titans can get across the Earth by going through tunnels underground. There's like slipstreams in the Earth.
Right.
Well, they're updating that a bit. They're saying there's more than that. There's actually portals in these like spots inside the Earth. So the show got really crazy for a minute there. And the first trope is once they go through these portals, it's what I just said about their hair being perfect. Their hair is perfect. Their makeup is perfect. They're rolling around in dirt, yet there's no dirt on their face. Like, you could see the lipstick isn't even smudged.
So here's my question. How did they explain this in the show? Did they explain it by showing it to you? Or was it like just like a diatribe of exposition that a scientist told some schmo?
Yeah, the show did a good job of explaining why it's there, what it does. I can't knock that.
Okay.
The only thing I'm knocking is how fast they put it together. And when they were shooting on location and everybody looked like, there's a lot of scenes in the Arctic and those fuckers look cold, And now all of a sudden they get passed through a portal into Titan world and their hair is perfect. It's just that kind of thing that makes me know that they rushed it.
Yeah.
And they're like, we have to go off script and make something up on the fly. We'll have to rent the studio over at the Warner's lot. What do you got? And it's just, to me, it's crazy. That is no way to make a movie, but I know it's not a movie, but it's kind of a movie.
It still sounds like better storytelling than Palpatine returns somehow. Like shitty, easy shortcuts like that.
That's lazy writing. This is another one that I saw them doing. Frankly, I think this was not Godzilla, so I'm cheating. I think this was on Echo. When they're having big gunfights and there's always inevitably that scene where the person fires, but there's no bullets in it. What do? They cock the gun up and look at it with a puzzled look. Huh?
What the fuck are you
What are you doing?
You've been pulling the trigger for the past 5 minutes. What the fuck do you think was going to happen?
Don't lose a second standing in front of another guy with a gun who counted his bullets correctly. Huh? And so they did, it's Echo, now that I'm thinking about it. She did it on Echo, and I'm like, I hate when they do that. Is that supposed to be a joke? Like, is that supposed to give the stunt choreographer a second to let his guy run around the corner? Like, why do that? But it seems to happen. Or I've only noticed it because it happens in the shit I watch. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? Do you see this?
I do.
Well, that thing with looking at the gun, I don't know. It pissed me off so bad at that moment. Now that I'm reading it, I'm not as pissed off, but at the moment I was pissed off. I was like, who came up with that? Why am I not on set to make sure that didn't actually happen on film? Because that's so dumb.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking to hire me to be a backseat driver to the director. I don't know why. And if it's not even that, it's some dumb, like, mishandling of a weapon for comedy sake, or I don't know. Drives me nuts.
The only time this trope would have made sense was in Die Hard, where John McClane gives Hans Gruber the gun when he's speaking with the English accent.
Go fuck yourself, Hans.
And he's not supposed to know it's Hans Gruber, but he gave him the gun without the bullets to, like, test him. And when he tried to, like, pull the gun, like, Hans Gruber looked at the gun like, what? And he was like, yeah, I gave you an empty gun, you dumb shit. That's the only time that trope would have made sense.
I think I'm getting hot about a trope that really isn't that big a trope, but I saw it and I wanted to write it down. Let me move on from that one, because that just makes me angry for some reason. Looked at her gun. Let me look at my gun hole. Huh? How about this trope? Well, you see this a lot, too. Some moral speech about empathy and saviorship as the hero kills like 1 million people.
How you on your fucking high horse?
We're the good guys. We're on the side of the people. We're the right guys. Meanwhile, they're killing all these other guys that are saying, we're the good guys. We're on the side of the people. I mean, it's just like real life war. Everybody thinks they're the good guys, but it's just funny to watch it in these Marvel movies or this Godzilla thing or anything that's kind of aimed for kids and young adults. Like, you're really not accurate when you're saying, like, this is the way that we should all be, and we should all live in harmony, and we must kill those other people that don't agree with us. Like, that's terrible. We shouldn't be teaching the world this.
Isn't this how religion's been weaponized for the past 3 millennia, if not longer? Reminds me of a Star Wars meme where there's like 2 stormtroopers standing there and like the Emperor like cackles and they go, you ever think we're the bad guys?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking with this trope.
Yeah.
Remember I had that story idea for a sequel to Predator where Arnold Schwarzenegger would land in the jungle. Remember that early scene and he was fighting with all his, his teammates and they were killing all of the...
You know what you're talking about. You wanted to follow the backstory of the guy that he just fucking stabbed and see if he had like kids and a wife and all that shit.
I knew I'd start laughing. Like, what happened to that guy? That guy's got a story. We know all about Arnold Schwarzenegger's story, but what about him? Why did he get into that army? Why was he fighting with those people? What was his goal? Maybe he was trying to save his family.
Maybe.
And we're all rooting for Arnold, but what about this perfectly innocent guy who was just doing what he was told, stabbed in the chest, pinned to a wall? Schwarzenegger says, stick around. But what about this guy?
I forgot about the fucking line. Oh my God.
Why? What did you do with so-and-so? I let him go. Dropped him off the cliff in Commando.
You know what? This is where Hollywood's going completely wrong. All this shit's coming to the public domain. Rather than like turn it into a fucking horror movie, what you ought to do is take that story, pick some rando character out of the story, and just write a whole other story about him in the same world that's public domain. This is where Hollywood's dropping the ball.
You're right. And I know first thing I thought about when you started to say that is what you sent me, because I read it at the same exact time about... You want to talk about this real quick?
Yeah, we might as well. We might as well bring a news story up to the now. How about fucking Pinocchio? Pinocchio Unstringed, I believe it's called.
Unbelievable. We have Mickey Mouse the murderer, we have Winnie Pooh the murderer, and now Pinocchio the murderer.
Winnie the Pooh 2, Blood and Honey is coming out, and I realized why. Now they're going to have Tigger because Tigger was part of the public domain this year.
Oh, you're kidding.
Because Winnie the Pooh was last year. Yeah, and Tigger was written into a book the year after Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore, which is who was in last year's horror movie. So now this year, Tigger becomes public domain. So it's like, I guess it's ripe for a sequel.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. I'm never going to buy Tigger as a killer. He's too happy. Eeyore, when Eeyore comes in, it could be like a murder mystery. I'll know right away. It's Eeyore. He's the fucking killer. But Tigger, you'd never expect Tigger to be a killer.
Well, Tigger's more like a Joker kind of villain, I think. Eeyore is just that melancholy. Of course he did it.
Oh, you think Tigger fucks with his prey a little bit?
Tigger's definitely a psychopath. Yeah.
He's going to be the guy that, all right, I know how it's going to be. It's going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You got the one guy that talks way too much and the other guy that mows him down with a chainsaw.
Exactly.
Chainsaw guy will be Winnie.
Yep. Oh, bother.
Back to tropes.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
All right. This one was specifically for my problem with Godzilla. The big unnecessary CGI fight at the end. I am getting so sick of CGI fights. This one was just like, well, we are all building to a moment, and it as much as I like seeing Godzilla, way too much CGI.
He said it.
So let me ask you this, and this is a huge spoiler. Who is the enemy that Godzilla's fighting?
Well, that's the interesting thing about the show. It's not about Godzilla. It's a side story where this Godzilla thing and all these other monsters are happening. So they're working angles and unlocking what's really going on in this world that they thought they knew and are now just learning they had completely wrong. Oh, and that's pretty interesting. So some of them have agendas. Some of them are, it's a clever show with a lot of different twists and turns.
So it sounds like this show did what I just said they should do and take an existing franchise and take other characters and show it from their point of view and realize that, hey, what we thought we knew was all wrong and just turned the whole fucking universe on its ear.
I wasn't listening. Yeah, you said that. Yeah, you totally got it. But I guess at the end, they were like, look, we got to have a payoff. At some point, we got to get Godzilla fighting somebody.
Yeah.
But I would have been fine without that payoff. See, that's another thing with this whole Godzilla series. You know Godzilla's going to show up at some point, but it doesn't always make sense that Godzilla shows up.
Sure.
Sometimes he's just not available.
Sometimes he's on the other side of the portal.
And that's another trope. Why don't they ever stop with the third act? They always go to a fourth and fifth act. Now they add portals. They just get things so complicated in these movies now. Unless they're taking it somewhere absolutely amazing. I have no idea how this is going to be fun, these portals. The interesting about the Godzilla world for me isn't magic.
Do you think they're going to have him portal to like another planet where there's going to be a Mothra or where there's going to be what's the other one? Gohan or what's the one with the three heads?
Ghidra. Well, he's been killed.
Ghidra. That's it. He has been.
Yeah, he got killed in one of the movies.
So like these other Titans can't be on Earth. We would notice a 50-foot wingspan moth flying around. So like he has to fight them other places.
Well, under the Earth is like Earth. There's trees, there's nature, because it's...
Oh.
And that was good enough. I thought that was interesting.
Okay.
You've seen this already in the movies. King Kong,
right.
Kong now lives in there, and some get along and some don't. And it's really I told you about it before. Whenever something comes to the surface, Godzilla comes to the surface to bring it back down. He keeps the top of the Earth safe. That's pretty much it. So now they're adding these portals and how he gets around and these other worlds. And I guess they're afraid they're going to run out of ideas.
Yeah, I thought with them having these portals and these tunnels and everything, I kind of just thought that they just retconned the idea that there was an inner Earth and that they had to fight someplace other than Earth. But it's still there. Yeah,
there's an inner Earth, and now the inner Earth has portals. So they doubled down on the weirdness.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was just too much because now it's like it was like Quantumania. Because now all of a sudden we're in inner Earth and it's just nonstop CGI, and the monsters are stomping their foot down and everyone's dodging their toes, and that trope that you see in all of these kaiju movies. So yeah, this show did so great and then just turned into nonsense at the end for me.
Love it.
And then I wrote here, this is a trope in my mind, final episode of any show that feels like someone is rushing their final college paper. Like, it's just, everything just comes together way too fast. And you know that they ran out of time in production.
Yeah.
And you can see it in the last episode. Every once in a while I catch that. It's like, wow, this show is great. And then that last episode just was like, We ran out of time. What do? We have 2 weeks to finish this episode. Well, we usually have 3 months. We got to cut some corners. Go. All right. So I do like the Godzilla show, but yeah, it had one of those final episodes.
Did you say King Kong's in there?
Yeah. So he's the secret guy at the end who pops out, and it's like, oh, look, it's King Kong. I was like, yeah, but we already saw Godzilla with King Kong, and now we're about to see him again. That's not really a great secret ending.
Oh.
But yeah, that was their secret ending, that Kong shows up, and now he's on their radar or something. I don't know.
So I know I said at the top, I haven't been watching a whole lot, but you saying King Kong really kind of sparked something for me here. I've been watching, and maybe you've seen this, I don't even know. There's been a lot of old school Nintendo video games in the news here lately. Have you seen anything popping up lately?
Not really. Old school, like how old school?
Like 1987's Tetris was finally beaten by a 13-year-old kid.
How do you beat Tetris? Till it runs out of RAM?
So glad you asked. Exactly right.
Was I right? I knew that's how you beat Pac-Man.
Well, we're going to get into all this and more with today's somewhat shorter, somewhat of a rant main topic here. So old school video games in the news here lately. So Tetris, as I said, was finally beaten on December 21st of this past year, 2023, by a 13-year-old named Willis Gibson.
What you talking about, Willis?
And he defeated it by reaching level 157, and he hit the kill screen. And the kill screen, as you just mentioned, occurs when the internal memory of the game or the computer, in this case the cartridge, has no more RAM and no more room to run or continue, and it just causes the game to just freeze. So where it stops, it just fucking ends. So basically, you beat the game to the point where it surrenders and freezes and just locks the fuck up.
Yeah, like a Windows machine. When that happens to you, you won.
Yeah, unless you're in the middle of a fucking paper or a fucking spreadsheet, and then you lost. You lose, sir.
Well, I know you're telling a fake story because there's no way there's a 13-year-old kid named Willis today alive.
So up to this point, there is. And here's the funny thing, though. These kids, these competitive speedrunners or these competitive gamers, they all have like crazy, probably Twitch handles and shit like that. So I forget what his is, like red something or blue something, something. But his real name is Willis Gibson.
Willis.
And up to this point, Willis.
What you talking about, Willis?
I said, what you talking about? That's right. Well, up to this point, they never knew there was a kill screen for Tetris. Or they assumed there was a kill screen, as you mentioned, for Pac-Man and other video games. They do have a finite amount of RAM that they can run. But the problem with Tetris was, once you hit like level 15, I think it is, the speed of the falling pieces was too fast that you couldn't get the pieces over to the edge to make columns. You know what I mean? You couldn't make rows because you couldn't get the piece over to the wall and down before it dropped and hit the other pieces and locked into place. So it used to be like once you got to that point, the amount of the score you have, basically the computer beat you. What Willis did here was beat the computer. So now what they're saying is the only place to go from here is to work with the game to see how far you can go level-wise. Because since Willis did this, it's been beaten 3 more times. They beat his final score and got to higher levels than 157. So it's just a matter of you doing the right thing to not trigger the kill screen from coming, so you don't overload the computer. So before, the computer would beat you. Willis, he beat the computer. Now the new thing that these crazy competitive gamers are doing is trying to work with the computer to see how far you could possibly get before you get the computer to lock the fuck up. The way that they got around the whole thing with the pieces falling too fast to get to the wall and make rows, they do this thing where they like triple tap with their other fingers, the bottom of the remote control, while they tap the top of the remote. It's like this whole fucking technique that somebody came up with, and that's how they are able to get past that level that used to be assumed to be unbeatable.
I have questions. So many questions.
I might have answers. I might not. What are you thinking?
Why did Echo look into the barrel of the gun?
What the fuck you thinking, man?
Oh, I can't answer that. I thought you were talking about Tetris here. I'm sorry.
All right. What about Tetris? So these kids, these 13-year-old kids, they're just finding the old retro games that we play, and they're playing them on Twitch, and they're trying to Like, what? How are they finding our old shit interesting at all?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I'm glad that they are. They're breathing life back into these games. But yeah, man, it's pretty fucking amazing. But this news really got me into thinking the first time I ever heard the phrase kill screen. And it used to go back to the arcades. And we mentioned before how so many of the original arcade games were just static screens. And the best you could do was get high score. There was no beating the game. You just went until you're fucking dead. And the high score won. You could put in ass as your name in the initial screen. Or you probably put in BIL. But
no, I put in ass. Absolutely. I was like, nobody's going to think of this.
Well, it came about like with Pac-Man that you could play, and if you were good enough, you could play until the computer, the arcade, ran out of RAM and you reached a kill screen. This got me thinking about a documentary I saw back in 2007 called The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters. Have you seen this?
I remember it. Yeah. Oh, the long-haired guy named Billy. He stands out from that thing. But I can't totally remember that guy's story.
So here's the deal. This whole documentary follows this gentleman, Billy Mitchell is who you're referring to.
You know what I was going to say? Billy Mays. Billy Mays here. I always called him Billy Mays. Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell, yeah.
So Billy Mitchell had a rockin' mullet, always wore like a dress shirt with a necktie. It was always the 80s necktie, like the keyboard necktie. Looked like this guy should have been a fucking keyboardist in a wedding band in the 1980s.
Well, this wasn't a mullet. This was long hair. Like a mullet was only so long. This guy had it down to his ass.
Yeah, this is true.
All the front was bangs and long hair.
It was definitely contoured.
And didn't he have like a Doctor Strange mustache type thing going on?
He did, yes. He did,
It was very peculiar looking. Very ominous looking.
This gentleman's entire identity, I feel, based on the way he presented in this documentary anyway, in the early 80s, he had the high score of Donkey Kong. He reached the kill screen of Donkey Kong. He was the first one to do it. He held this title for 25 years. And then along comes a gentleman by the name of Steve, I believe it's Wiebe. It could be Weeb. It's W-I-E-B-E. He was a teacher, a school teacher in Washington State. And while he was out of work, he got into playing Donkey Kong and he crushed Billy Mitchell's record.
What a weeb.
So Billy Mitchell loses his mind. He calls him out and he says, well, no, that's impossible. You couldn't have beaten my record. The only way you can beat my record is if you do it on this one machine in Iowa at this Funko arcade, because all the different machines have different levels of RAM, I guess was his story. And unless you do it on this one machine, you can't say you beat my record. Basically, I feel like this guy was losing his fucking identity and was just like, no, you didn't beat my record. My record still stands. So what this documentary follows is they are coming down to the 2007 Guinness Book of World Records, and Steve Wiebe calls out Billy Mitchell to come down to Florida and go head-to-head, face off, and I don't want to ruin anything but go from there. I'll say this, at the end of it all, Billy Mitchell ends up looking like a goddamn hand job.
Yeah, such a weeb thing to do. So weeby of him. Poor Billy.
Yeah, he's just as cocky. He reminds me of like a car salesman kind of guy, like a used car salesman, just like real seedy. Like that's just how he comes off. And this Steve guy is just like, yeah, man, like I just kind of knew this is a hobby. It's pretty cool. Like I didn't even know there was a world record, and here I beat it. And like at this Iowa Funko arcade, like they'd be walking around, they'd be like, hey, there's a kill screen coming up over here on Donkey Kong, kill screen coming up. And they have like all these people come over, like huddle around the machine to watch this happen. And all of a sudden the game just stops and people are like, yeah, and clapping their hands. It's the craziest thing.
I'm still thinking about this guy's claim to fame was this, and he can't let it go. Like there's so many people. It's Al Bundy and the 3 touchdowns in one game. He can't let it go.
4 touchdowns in a single game at Polk High. Thank you.
All right. You're an Al Bundy. Don't Bundy that book. Remember that?
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, I remember this. It's coming back to me. And wasn't there a sequel too? Didn't this guy try it again with Pac-Man or something? There's more with this guy.
This arbitration, this back and forth between Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell has been going on forever. And I just read a story that they're going to reinstate Billy Mitchell's scores because they were under contest. They were being contested that they were not legit. And I guess there was just a ruling that came out. I don't know who fucking oversees this, but apparently they just reinstated Billy Mitchell's scores. So I'm sure he can go on about his life as a happy individual because clearly he has a lot going on.
Yeah. How much money is all this making him?
I have no idea. He still wears the neckties and still has the haircut.
It's crazy, though, to think about the video game scene. Like, it was that. It was go to arcades, and now it's Twitch. I mean, people watch people play video games all day long. There's so many streamers and people doing shit out there watching other people who aren't interesting at all. But that's, entertainment for young people. It's crazy to me. I loved watching my friends play video games growing up, but I'm older now. I don't want to watch them play, but kids love watching other kids play. Make a channel of it. Of course, it was brilliant.
Yeah, Bill, they're not just watching other people. They're also tuning in to watch dogs play video games.
Yeah, you sent this to me, and I got that far into it, and I was so pissed off. I was so like, this is the dumbest thing. No, this can't be real. And I discarded it from my brain, and you're bringing it back up. How?
Yeah.
How is this a thing?
The video game that the dog was playing was Gyromite, which was an original launch title for the Nintendo Entertainment System back in '85. And this was a game that you had to play with Rob the Robot. Remember Rob the Robot?
Oh, yeah. I never knew what that was. Yeah, Rob. Yeah. It wasn't even like a real robot. It didn't do shit.
Well, it would like pick up these spinning discs, these, I forget what the fuck they were called, gyros, I guess. But I think they were gyros. It would pick up the gyros and move it over and drop it on a little like disc that would press a button on controller 2.
So it was a jukebox.
Yeah, kind of. It picked up the record and moved it. Well, it picked up these spinning discs and dropped it. And the whole idea was to get your character, who's a sleepwalking doctor, through this maze, utilizing Rob the Robot to move these things. Well, this guy basically engineered a controller for his dog. It's this, what do they call it? A Shiba Inu or something? Or I forget what kind of. Anyway, he made a controller for his dog. And the dog, rather than Rob the Robot, the dog would push one button or push the other button. So through training this dog for a year, giving him treats and hand signals and whatnot, he and this dog beat Gyromite in a speed run. That's a whole other thing. There's this whole thing called Games Done Quick. It's like, I guess it's a website or a streaming service, but people are just playing these old school Nintendo games to speed run and get through them as quick as they possibly can, usually without warps or anything like that. So they just run through beginning to end, they time it, and there's world records for this kind of shit.
Wow. What's going on out there?
You want to be amazed? You should go to YouTube and look up Mike Tyson's Punch-Out speedrun. They will show you tricks where, like, if you let Don Flamenco punch you 3 times, or not punch you, but if you let Don Flamenco throw 3 punches, and you then, like, left uppercut 1 time, you'll knock him down, and you can beat him in, like, 23 seconds. But there's, like, all these things. If you do the right thing at the right time, they have it figured out where you can't possibly beat the game any quicker than this. And then 10 years from now, somebody will be like, oh, well, if you actually like body check him and he blocks and then you give him an uppercut and you get a star and then you left super punch him, then he'll go down like 2 seconds quicker. So there's these people that are like fucking scientifically breaking down button combinations and the time on the clock and all kinds of shit to get the fastest speedrun of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
Speedruns became a thing into my consciousness with Tomb Raider. I remember like they had challenges where you had to run out of the mansion and get into this car and you had to jump on things and basically parkour. I did that like 5 times and I was like, I'll never do that again. That was awfully boring. I do not enjoy that. So now there's a whole thing around speedruns. They love it, huh?
Crazy. Contra speedruns, and any game you could think of, there's a speedrun championship. There's a speedrun record out there.
And these kids are so fucking smart and they could figure this stuff out. They're exploiting games that have been out for 40 years.
Yeah. It's insane. And this is the rabbit hole I went down this week.
And they're not helping society at all. They're just hanging out in their bedrooms.
Well, they gave me a week's worth of entertainment.
You know what these brilliant kids would never do? Look down the barrel of a gun, like Echo.
What the fuck?
I waited until you got a drink of water.
Way to bring that full circle.
Oh my God. So weird. I was watching a video about this kid who was supposed to be the fastest at Guitar Hero. And then there was a big conspiracy.
It's all fake, though.
Yeah, it was fake. He found a way to record it and then speed it up just a little bit. And then these detectives figured it out. They're like, I could tell real fast that he was using screen capture software that you wouldn't be using unless you were using some kind of movie editor. And you wouldn't be needing a movie editor to speed and slow things up unless you're cheating. And I was like, wow, kids are fucking brilliant.
Yeah, there's like blindfold speed runs. There's all kinds of like speed runs with like other things, like speed runs, but two people are using the same controller. Speed runs where you can only use your feet to play. It's like weird shit out there, and like people challenge each other. And as you know, humans are kind of stupid. If there's a record, we're gonna try and beat it.
Yeah, I'm pretty competitive. I'd probably, yeah. Play Kid Icarus with your butt. Get past the first level. Shit, you challenged me. Now I got to do it with my butt. But no, some of these challenges, I just don't have time. Every day, these kids probably work at this stuff. And then when they finally reach this massive achievement that they put all their time into, it's such a fleeting thing in my mind.
Dude, the first story I read about this Willis Gibson kid, he says he practices Tetris. I think he said 4 hours a day. I mean, if you don't enjoy it, it's a waste of a life. And then like his record stood for 3 days until the next, like, because basically what he learned and what he shared and what people saw him do on this live stream, it basically emulated, and his record was beaten in, I think it's been beaten 3 times since he did this.
I always heard a story about a local guy. I don't even know if you know this story. Do you know who Richie Kotzen is?
Doesn't sound familiar now.
He's an amazing guitar player. You know, I'm a guitar player, so I pay attention to who's amazing. He's always been on the list. He joined Poison for a minute. He's from Wilson High School. He's right around where Taylor Swift. Oh. Yeah. So I always heard a story that his parents let him practice guitar instead of go to high school like 8 hours a day. But they said, because you're going to make a career of this. I have no idea if this is urban legend or what. What's the parent thinking when the kid's like, Tetris is going to be my future? I need 4 hours of Tetris a day.
Damn.
I need to meet the parents. I got to know what these parents think. I don't know. I think kids are getting too many video games. They're all like our parents thought we were going to be. And we were like, no, we're not that bad. Now the kids are that bad with video games.
The difference being, though, our parents were just like, there's no future in video games. But now this kid's all over the news. I guess there might be a future in video games. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, you know what? You're right. Probably because he's got that notoriety. He's going to blow up on the internet. Somebody's going to pay him a lot of money for something.
He's an influencer.
That's the word. That's the greatest thing to be an influencer. Everybody wants to be an influencer. I see people who, you know, you're like, what do you do? I'm an influencer. Oh, who do you influence? Yeah, I have like 2,000 followers on Instagram, and I'm like, that's like 98% of them are bots. Like, it's Instagram.
Sure.
And they're so proud to be an influencer. So to them, it's like being a rock guitarist or something. You say, I'm a guitarist. I'm an influencer.
Let me wrap this with this question for you. Were you ever any good at Tetris?
Yeah, I was pretty good at Tetris. But once you got behind the 8-ball, like you said, once that pile gets a little bit too high and you just can't get the shape you need over to the side it needs to be in time, yeah, that part sucked. Hated that.
Do you remember there was like a B game? There was like a game where you just kept going and going and going, and then there was a B game where it's like you could pick any level you wanted, it would count down, and once you like hit 200 lines, you get like an ending screen?
No. Mm-mm.
So yeah, if you picked level 9, and this is how I thought I beat Tetris before. If you started with level 9 and you worked all the way down through all the lines and cleared all the lines you had to clear, if you got such a certain score, it would show Samus Aran, Mario, Bowser, and Donkey Kong playing different instruments. It would play like the can-can. And I thought the more characters you had, like the better the ending. So there was like different spots. And if you didn't score that high, there'd just be Mario there playing like a fiddle or something. And then if you got a higher score, there'd be like Mario and Bowser would be playing like an accordion. So there was like, once you got like all the different spots filled, I thought that was how you beat the game. I had no idea there was a fucking kill screen. Who knew that?
Ladies and gentlemen, if Scott's making any sense to you, write in and say, yeah, that actually happened in one version of Tetris. I've never heard of any of that happening in Tetris.
Oh, yeah.
So there's cameos from other Nintendo games.
There are cameos, yes.
Oof. How big did Tetris get?
Well, that's all I got, man. What do you got for news?
Well, it happens to be a perfect segue for the first news item called The Atari-Themed Hotel Dream Isn't Over Yet.
They're making an Atari-themed hotel?
Yeah. So this is from The Verge. This isn't even a summary. I'm just reading straight from The Verge. Nearly 4 years ago, Atari announced a licensing deal that would allow a company called GSD Group to build Atari-themed hotels with immersive VR/AR experiences and esports venues, and we haven't heard much since. But now the Las Vegas Review-Journal says Atari Hotel is in talks with land partners for potential Las Vegas sites, and that a series of project announcements is coming up in the first half of this year.
Did you say 4 years ago or 40 years ago?
Nearly 4 years ago. This is when they started talking
4
about
years
it. Yeah,
ago.
so it sounds like they're actually pulling this off.
I almost didn't even know Atari was still a company.
Yeah, right? Like, is it like a guy in his basement, you know? He still has the brand name and just sits in a document in his bottom drawer. He's like, I got to figure out what to do with this fucking Atari. And this is what he came up with. I mean, I'm excited. I want to see what this is. It sounds really cool.
I'd check it out. You go in there, you play Missile Command, or you go in there and you play fucking
Combat,
Jungle Hunt, or pole position, combat. There you go. Haunted House.
An adventure.
Yeah. But like Namco owned like Pac-Man and like the other famous ones. Dig Dug was Namco. So like a lot of the famous games weren't even owned by Atari. They were just other licenses.
What little kid's going to be excited about, you know, the guys that come out dressed as like the monsters from Dig Dug? You know, nobody's going to be that excited.
Nobody's going to. It's going to be people like us.
It's all going to be us. Yeah, we're going to be in Las Vegas getting drunk, hanging out with Samus.
That's right. I mean, it's going to be us there. Our kids will be wearing their fucking Oculus or their MetaQuest, whatever the fuck they're called. They're playing like modern day shit. We're like, oh, look at that. Haunted house. This is fantastic.
It's going to be amazing. Walk into one room and it's like Tapper. You get a beer. Walk into another room. It's burger time. You get a burger.
Oh, I love that.
Somebody let them know I'm here so they can hire me as a consultant. I've got all the ideas. Let's go from Vegas to a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars News Net. Never heard of this website before, but I had a good story. So we're pulling it and we're going to read from it. It's called Daisy Ridley Says She Was Convinced to Join the New Jedi Order film after hearing the new direction of the story. So are you caught up on this?
I read a little bit about it, yes.
All right. I'll do the quick synopsis. Daisy Ridley revealed in an interview that Kathleen Kennedy approached her about joining a new Star Wars film after she was already working on another project last year. She brought it up over breakfast, and Daisy Ridley was like, oh, I just thought we were catching up, you know, talking about old times. And all of a sudden she's like, oh, yeah, so there's a reason I brought you here. We want to do a new Jedi movie. So the new film will be part of the recently announced New Jedi Order era, set 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. It will see Rey Skywalker rebuilding the Jedi Order. It says Ridley is excited about the new direction that they are taking the story and says it's a really fantastic exploration of the Star Wars world. The film was announced at Star Wars Celebration in London. So it says here, Charmin Obaid Chinoy is the director and Stephen Knight is the writer. Knight was supposed to turn in the script before the holidays, but the status of that script is still currently unknown. So Ridley has not yet seen the script as of November, but is enthusiastic about being part of the new project and the direction Lucasfilm is taking. So they're building a little bit of buzz that they're going to do a new thing. But,
yeah,
you know, how do you do this without seeing a script? Here's the story, but the script could totally dip and dodge all throughout and really embarrass you if you didn't read the script.
Yeah, ask Adam Driver how that played out when they sell you on a story without a script.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
We talked about that last week.
She didn't learn.
Well, I know. I think part of the new story that they're talking about may go back to something we talked about a few weeks ago where they were kind of like, oh, yeah, well, anybody can be a Jedi. Remember, you were like floored by that idea?
Yeah, I hate that.
I think that's, with this being 15 years in the future and this new thing where like, well, anybody can train to be a Jedi, I feel like they can have anybody part of her Jedi Academy. There's no limitations. And you know what? I'm kind of excited that it doesn't have to be a Skywalker. I will say this. If she continues to use the Skywalker last name, I'll be a little pissed off.
I gotta believe she's gonna.
I know. I don't want her to.
I just don't know that I can get that excited about Skywalker stuff. If Luke's not in it, if all these other guys are dead, like, I don't know. You can make it for a new generation, but you better make a great story or I'm not looking to see this. I don't care.
What if they retconned it and somehow brought in Star Killer, Darth Vader's secret apprentice from all those years ago, and made him the bad guy?
The only thing I'd like is they reboot it. They just make an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we're redoing the Skywalker saga. Sorry we screwed up. So just let's pretend that didn't happen. And let's get the rest of this cast in before they all die. Sorry about Carrie Fisher. Just do like one of those Men in Black, flashy things. That's what I want. And you know what? Don't stop there. Do it with the last 10 years of MCU, too. Just get rid of all of them. Start over.
Poof, it's gone.
And then, when they're done those two, go do the same thing with Indiana Jones.
Okay.
Just start over.
Poof.
The crystal what now?
Yeah, we don't even remember. We've been poofed. And evidently, I'm not a Doctor Who fan, but Doctor Who fans are up in arms for the same reason that we, rail on MCU and all the Disney stuff. Apparently, they did the same thing over on that side.
Yeah. Wasn't like Doogie Howser in there or something?
Yeah. But I know Doctor Who fans aren't happy.
Neil Patrick Harris, that's his name. Yeah.
Boy, Disney is just... They had the world's balls in their grip, didn't they? I mean, they just had us hooked. Everything they put out was $1 billion maker, and now...
They squeeze those balls real hard.
Oh, it's amazing. While we're talking about Star Wars, I have this other story. I was curious if you knew about this. So Jon Favreau is now set to direct a new Star Wars movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yes.
You into that?
Well, is this the movie that's going to be the culmination of all the Disney Plus series and bring them all together?
It says the film goes into production later this year, and the team shared a first look at image. Nice grammar there, IGN. Yeah, but I don't see...
Filoni's not involved with this?
The news was revealed by StarWars.com and was also confirmed that Jon Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy, and Dave Filoni will be on board to produce it. Yeah.
Oh.
Because we talked about it last time that Filoni is now the boss.
Yeah, but when I saw that this movie was coming out and I watched I guess it was a trailer or maybe just the article, I thought that this was just the movie we already knew was coming that was going to bring together Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian and Ahsoka and just have all those Disney Plus series culminate in this one movie. But I didn't know it was a Favreau-driven thing. I thought it was a Filoni-driven thing.
Well, I guess it is a Favreau-driven, a Filoni-driven, these fuckers with their names, a Filoni-driven thing if he's the one on, he's producing it. He's at the top of the pyramid.
Right.
So,
well, I guess from when this was first announced, he was promoted to be the director of I don't know what the fuck his title is anymore.
Oh, this is bad news. So James Mangold is involved. He was the guy that directed.
He was the guy that did the newest Indiana Jones.
James Mangold is taking things even farther back in time and will focus on the dawning of the Force, while Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's movie will star Daisy Ridley's Rey as she builds a new Jedi Order.
Yes.
So we have a Jon Favreau movie. We have a James Mangold movie, which in this article didn't even mention the name of it. And then we have a new Jedi Order movie. So we have 3 different universes that they're going to explore.
Yeah, but I think the Mangold movie is going to be more like the era of the New Republic. So this is more in line with what they are doing in the current novels, which is not anything with the sequel trilogy. This is going back almost like medieval times for Jedi is the best way I can describe it.
That might be interesting.
Yeah, completely removed. Still plays in the same sandbox, but completely removed from anything we know.
I like that better than watching everybody be able to have the Force. Well, anyway, there's a lot of Star Wars coming up. And before we go, I'll bring up this one last story that you sent over. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire takes the cover of Empire's March issue. Were you excited to see that?
I was.
So we got Bill Murray, we got Dan Aykroyd, we got Ernie Hudson, and then Annie Potts is a Ghostbuster, I guess. She's standing here. I don't know if this is just for the magazine or if she's actually going to be a Ghostbuster.
That's why I sent it over. That's what stood out to me. Was Annie Potts dressed up in the jumpsuit. So while we're talking about Ghostbusters, the other thing I was reading here this week was, did you see, and I think we even talked about this on the show before, but they're being like heavily inspired by the real Ghostbusters cartoon from the late 80s, early 90s. Have you seen this?
I did, and they got a quote from somebody as part of that earlier production. They're like, yeah, nobody came to us for help.
But what I read today was they're taking, like, what they're taking from the cartoon is a lot of the design elements from the ghosts and the bad guys. That's what they're going to bring into Frozen Empire.
So wait a minute. They're taking from the one cartoon, putting it into this what? They're putting in the ghosts from the Ghostbusters?
Yeah, they're basing their character design for a lot of the ghosts in this new Frozen Empire movie. They're basing it on the ghosts and the character design from that 80s cartoon.
Oh, because the way I read it, it sounded like they were using storylines and picking up characteristics and things from the cartoon and just lifting it. So, okay.
A few of them, but from what I read today, they're actually just, if they're doing that as well, they're also stealing a lot of the character design ideas for ghosts.
I like the last movie that Reitman made. I'm just so mad that they're doing this now without Egon. It's not right without Egon for me.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a bummer because they could have pulled this off. And now all of a sudden, Bill Murray's thrilled to be in everything Ghostbusters. It makes no sense. He was the holdout.
And the story's always said he was the holdout. You're absolutely right.
And he had a big falling out with Ramis, Harold Ramis. And that's what I think the fight might have been about. And then when he died, I think I remember reading an interview with Bill Murray where like they had a soft reunion or didn't have a reunion or something. So maybe that's really why he was staying away. But that's even uglier if that's true. Because now he's dead. It's like, hey, I'll come make money.
How can you make something as good as Stripes and you can't come together for more sequels of Ghostbusters?
That's something Howard Stern always says about rock bands. You know? Like there's bands out there like Aerosmith where the main two really don't like each other. Like Rolling Stones, evidently the main two don't. But they figure out how to make it work for the job. Why can't everybody else do that?
Sure.
I know.
Right.
I get that way too.
It seems so simple.
I also remember reading that Slimer is in this.
Yeah. Which would be a good throwback to John Belushi, because that's who he was made after, right? He was modeled after John.
Yeah, I think I remember reading that.
Yeah, we talked about that one here before.
Well, we've been going through a crazy period the last 10 years of just too much fan service, too much CGI.
He said it! He said it!
All these reboots, bringing all this old IP back. I just am afraid they're going to kill Ghostbusters. I see it coming.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was it as I go through the news. Bill and Ted 4 gets exciting and clarifying update from Star. Do you care that Alex Winter says he's got a story for Bill and Ted 4? No.
I don't think I saw Bill and Ted 3.
I don't think anybody did. So I'm going to cut this story, and instead, I'm going to go get dinner. What do you say?
All right, man. Everyone, thanks for listening. Always a good time. Like seeing new people come on board. Don't forget to tell a friend. That's the price to pay. And you got anything to go out here with?
No, love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is a lot of fun to watch all this grow. Right on in to toomuchcgi.com. Give us your comments. We'd love to know how we're doing. Thanks so much.
And we'll see you next time.
Poof, it's gone.